Paul Brunton explains the world's perennial wisdom. Mentalism, mind, not matter, is the real. Quest Video Series 4, video number 7, presented by the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation. When the truth of mentalism finally dawns on you, not only as an idea thought out, an emotion strongly felt, and an experience shattering the last remnants of materialism for you, what happens is the greatest revelation of your life, as sacred as any gospel. Mentalism and science. The physicist Max Planck stated, "As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you, as a result of my research about atoms, this much. There is no matter per se. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." Science, which began by repudiating mind and exalting matter, is being forced by facts to end by repudiating matter and exalting mind. This is why spiritual philosophy today must sharply emphasize and teach, alongside of ancient lore, the profounder mentalist import of vital facts of modern scientific discovery, which have not yet received their deserved reward of recognition from the world. The term mentalism, as used here, does not mean the half-baked form which distinguishes between mental things and material things, and says that although we can know only the former, the coexistence of their material external counterparts must still be admitted. By mentalism, we mean more precisely this: that all things in human experience, without any exception, are wholly and entirely mental things, and are not merely mental copies of material things. That this entire panorama of universal existence is nothing but a mental experience, and not merely a mental representation of a separate material existence. That we can arrive at such conclusions not only by a straight-line sequence of reasoned thinking, but also by a reorientation of consciousness during advanced mystical meditation. The astrophysicist Sir Arthur Eddington noted, "It is difficult for the matter-of-fact physicist to accept the view that the substratum of everything is of mental character. But no one can deny that mind is the first and most direct thing in our experience, and all else is remote inference." And as Max Planck reiterated, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. Mind is its own seer and seen, self and not self, experiencer and the thing experienced. It is one, but it has many functions through which it is able to present innumerable different manifestations of itself to innumerable different selves. The latter, in their ignorance, take the presented world, because of its outsideness, to be non-mental in its nature, and fail to see that their separation from it is only a surface one. The world is certainly outside the body, but not outside the mind. Thus, what is essentially a mental activity is taken to be a separate material substance. This is insight, that there is nothing in the world but mind. This is the meaning of mentalism. Non-duality and mentalism. The concept of non-duality given by the Advaita Vedanta seems impossible to grasp and to accept to the normal Western mind, and quite rightly so. This impasse must exist unless and until the situation is clarified, and the only way to do so lies through mentalism. The human mind normally functions in a dualistic manner. That is, it identifies itself as a subject with an object of its consciousness outside. This dualism penetrates the practices followed on the spiritual quest and the knowledge gained as a consequence of them. It cannot be got rid of until both subject and object are thrown into and unified by the pure consciousness, mind, in which, from which, and by which all happens. Sir Arthur Eddington wisely explained, "The mind stuff of the world is, of course, something more general than our individual conscious minds." The world is neither an illusion nor a dream, but is analogically like both. It is true that the mystics or yogis do experience it as such. This is a step forward towards liberation, but must not be mistaken for liberation itself. When they pass upward to the higher or philosophic stage, they will discover that all is mind, whether the latter be creatively active or latently passive, that the world is, in its essential stuff, this mind, although its particular forms are transient and mortal, and that therefore there is no real difference between earthly experience and divine experience. Those who are wedded to forms, that is, to appearances, set up such a difference and posit spirit and matter, nirvana and samsara, Brahman and Maya, and so forth, as antithetic opposites. But those who have developed insight perceive the essential stuff of everything, even while they perceive its forms. Hence they see all as one. It is as if a dreamer were to know that he was dreaming and thus understand that all the dream scenes and figures were nothing but one and the same stuff, his mind, while not losing his dream experience. If the universe comes out of one's own mind, we must remember that one's own mind comes out of the cosmic mind. Thus, the final impulse is not our own. Mentalism does not set up one's little limited self as alone real and all else as illusory. This error is termed solipsism and is sheer lunacy. Solipsistic thinking fails to recognize that the individual is itself a projection of mind. If we regard the world as having no independent existence outside our own finite consciousness, then we have misunderstood mentalism. How hard for the average mind to grasp this central fact, that the cosmic mind's world idea is the world creation. The one does not precede the other. The second is not a copy in matter of the first. Man has to work with his senses and his intellect when he wants to convert his ideas into objects. But the world mind does not need to make an effort in order to make a universe, does not in reality have anything to do at all, for its thought is the thing. Nothing can come out of the universal mind that is not mental, not even the material world which men believe they inhabit and experience. The practice of mentalism. Spiritual aspirants must not only imbue themselves thoroughly with the truth that everything is mind, but must have practiced a meditation on the past, which produces the realization of this truth. Whoever persists in only perceiving the world's form and not its essence is a materialist enshrouded by illusion, no matter how religious or how spiritual they believe themselves to be. The practice reduces itself to this, that our old habit of thinking everything to be matter must gradually break down and be replaced by the new habit of understanding everything to be mind. Thoughts seem subjective only until we begin to inquire. Then we find they are objective to mind. Each individual wave of thought separates itself, i.e., objectifies itself from the ocean to the extent that it takes a separate shape. But when it falls back and merges then as ocean, it remains unformed and unseparated. Ordinary yoga and mysticism seek to cause this result by artificially shutting out the world in the trance state. As this latter can never be a permanent one, success must always be followed by relapses, just as sleep must always be followed by waking. It can be achieved permanently only by inquiry, which lays bare the true nature of mind and the world. For that, ordinary yoga is not necessary. It is but a preparation for the higher system. Pure mind can never be visualized in our world of time and space. Our field of view is too limited to contain it. Reality belongs to the realm of the formless, the matterless. Everything that has shape, that has objectivity, belongs to the world of appearances. And yet, whoever would take this seeming void for actual nothingness would be mistaken, for it is the essence of mind, which is itself the very ground of all our varied human existence. It is true that thinking cannot take hold of the transcendental awareness, that reason cannot touch it, and imagination cannot represent it to us. But it is equally true that without the preparatory work of thinking, reasoning, and imagining, we cannot arrive at this awareness. You may know the fact that the table is an idea without feeling it to be so. If it be said that the fact being a true one, I ought to also feel it as an idea, the answer is that such feeling is possible, but can come only at the very end of a long course of re-educating your mind and its habits. You must think constantly that the world is an idea until it gets so firmly fixed in your mind that the final test of our grasp is met satisfactorily, which is when in your dreams you say to yourself that even they are but ideas. Through such constant practice, you slowly actualize your true nature. You begin to distinguish your individuality from the universal being which lies at its root. When you know that a mirage is nothing more than a mirage, you do not travel towards it to drink its imaginary water. Nevertheless, you do not and cannot stop seeing the mirage. Similarly, when you know that the world is an idea, this does not mean that you will no longer be able to see the world, for it is there, but it means that you will regard it with the same insight as you would regard the water of a mirage. Quotes are taken from the notebooks of Paul Brunton, Volume 13, Relativity, Philosophy, and Mind, and The Wisdom of the Overself. Paul Brunton, 1898 to 1981, a best-selling British author of a dozen books, spent much of his early life researching the original sacred teachings of Western and Eastern spiritual traditions. He traveled the world to discover and communicate with Christian, Kabbalistic, Vedantic, Buddhist, Taoist, indigenous, and Sufi masters. Blending the richness of his own spiritual experience and inquiry with these ancient and contemporary teachings, he developed a philosophy and path of practice that suits life in the 21st century, one that expresses the greatest wisdom and love available to humankind. Regardless of how it is named, we each have a divine soul, an overself or higher self, that is with us here and now, waiting to be realized. Paul Brunton's writings are a source of deep spiritual guidance for all those interested in living a divinely inspired life.